My guest today is writer-director Pablo Delgado, and as a director, his first feature film, Las Lagrimas in 2013, toured film festivals around the world, including Locarno and Rotterdam and Morelia and many others. Now, his documentary, My Hidden Skin, in 2022, in collaboration with his mother, Guadalupe Sanchez, premiered at the Albulante Documentary Film Festival. But after over a decade, Pablo has made a return to fiction filmmaking with The Cascade, a short film that has its international premiere or had its international premiere in the competition of Clermont-Ferrand, taking home the Canal Plus Cineplus Grand Prix Award. And the short film The Cascade, well, a man discovers he has been crying for 2 months without even realizing it. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome writer-director Pablo Delgado and his Oscar-qualified short film, The Cascade, to the show. Welcome, Pablo.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Ward. I'm really happy for this interview.
Well, I am looking forward to talking to you about this amazing film, The Cascade. So, how did you come to write this story?
Well, as you mentioned, I took my time to come back to fiction. I know processes sometimes take you to different paths, and for in my case, it took me away from what I love most on cinema, which is fiction, and it was like a good momentum for me to start writing again. Pandemic, and by the time I was finishing the documentary I did with my mom, My Hidden Skin, which involves a highly feminist content regarding the memory of body. And in this film, the characters of the documentary, they did talk a lot of things about masculinity. And I think that really struck me. And I start questioning a lot of things and I start imagining a lot of things. By the side, I'm a big fan of comic books. Not very much into DC or Marvel, but more like an independent comic book, like Le Bande Dessinée from France. There are things from Brazil, Europe, the independent storytellers from the US, like Charles Burns, like Daniel Klaus. I love them. So I guess I was pretty much influenced by this weirdness that sometimes comics book have, and I wanted to bring that into this exploration of masculinity. So I find out that it was a really good mixing. Like the very first thing that I got, it was like, what happened if a man doesn't realize that he's crying, but he's been crying all the time, and therefore it was pretty much obvious that the conversation towards the short film needed to be on that way, masculinity and what masculinity conveys in terms of empathy, emotions, and showing them. And also, more like in the background, pretty much about the system that demands certain things from women and certain things from men. Therefore, there was like the inspiration.
Well, you chose or you casted actor Daniel Haddad for the lead role, and he is a picture of masculinity. He's a big guy, and when you look at him, you think, real man. Is that why you chose Daniel?
Sure. I mean, since the script there was a description, this man is big like a bear. And I didn't knew how that worked previously, but uh, 3 years ago, when I had the first draft of the script, I sent it to one of our co-producers, Gerardo Moran, and he immediately told me it needs to be Daniel. I saw his Instagram account. I said, like, yeah, he definitely works. And then when we were in the pre-production of the film, our casting directors told us, like, blindly, like, we put the hands on fire is Daniel Haddad. You have to go with him. So I told him, let's see if he's available. When I met him here in Roma in a cafeteria, I didn't realize how big he was. He's like really really big. He's like a big man, and but it's not only that. His talent, his acting skill is just amazing. And I realized that comedy actors and actresses and comedy performers are those who has a wider range, and they can calibrate many things. So I am happy that I work with him, and I'm writing stuff, new stuff for him. I want to work with him in new projects. I really
Well, are you there?
I am here. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. We can take care of that in post.
Thank you very sorry for the inconvenience. It's my phone, so
Not a problem. Not a problem. Well, I want to talk about this film because, especially with the opening scene, which I found the opening scene to be very interesting, as the doctor really shows no empathy for the man's condition because he keeps smiling and laughing, even eating a snack. So I found that very unusual that he has a patient in front of him, but he's not taking the concerns of the patient very seriously. Uh, and then, of course, that really comes back to the doctor later in the film, doesn't it?
yeah, it's interesting you mention it, Ward, because actually in Letterbox I got a super good review from one Oscar viewer. Um, and he loved the film. He made a great review, but he just mentioned that the tone of the doctor wasn't for him. And I think the tone of the doctor pretty much said what the tone of the film is, and the weirdness and the relatable world, but not that much because. And I do think doctors are somehow not that sensitive. Some always in that emotional regard, you know? So I really wanted it to be like that. But I have to tell you that, I mean, I worked with Fernando Alvarez Rebel, the doctor, the actor, with my in my first feature in Las Lagrimas years ago, and I wanted to repeat. For me, he's like a symbol on my body of work. And while we were rehearsing, because I just choose to rehearse just two scenes, the final scene in the table with the whole family, and that particular scene with the doctor, to find the tone, to find the comedy there. And it was pretty much easy. But when we were rehearsing in the production in the offices, he was eating a snack, and then I find it like very funny. And I told him like, you're going to be eating like some it's pepitas. I don't know how to say it's the sunflower seed that he's eating. So yeah, I told him like, you will have some snack while during the scene, and he did it amazingly.
Well, see, I liked the scene because if you took the doctor element out of it, so you have this guy that is crying internally. And so you have Daniel and the doctor. It could be, let's say, it could have been his friend, and maybe they were, maybe at home during a barbecue. Maybe they're sitting at a bar together, where one is trying to relay their problem, but the friend's not paying attention and really doesn't even care. And that's what that scene really showed, regardless if the guy was a doctor or not. And because you said, as this film is focused on masculinity, and a lot of us men, we hold things on the inside, and that's why I thought that scene was very poignant, because later in the film, the doctor came to work limping and dealing with his own foot problems, cancels all his appointments. And again, I looked at it like, well, men, when they're dealing with a crisis, usually want to be left alone. That's how I read that scene.
Absolutely, that was the point. It was to start with the main conflict. Like, this is the problem, this is the conflict on this story. But it was important to show a man in front of another man and not being able to communicate like deeply emotionally and in an empathic way. And I think that's a common thing. That's something that happens. I mean, something that I wrote in my statement for the short film is that we've all been in front of a man crying and somehow been a little bit uncomfortable about it, and that is not normal. That is not at all something that should happen. We should be able to show empathy and to embrace our sadness, our feelings, but someone else's too.
Yeah, and that's what I got from this film. And now, did the inverted tear ducts and the internal tears symbolize the sadness, stress, and grief that a man can hold inside while trying to appear strong on the outside?
Absolutely, and that comes from also from the design of the character, the design of the set of the house of the family. Everything seems a little bit old fashioned. They live in a house that is probably more from the grandma, from the grandpa, but it's not like a modern family house. So I wanted it to feel like that. It's on purpose that it feels old and vintage and somehow like an old family in a modern day. So we got like this at certain point with Juan Pablo, the director of photography, and Mr. the musician of the film. They told me like it has like some kind of sci-fi dystopic vibe somehow. So it was important to bring that design in order to the tone to convey in that weirdness. And also, as I mentioned, like in this inspiration of comic books, that I think the comic artists are like the most free storytellers. I mean, they just need their hand and their imagination, and if they want to explode the whole universe, they can do it. I can't because of budget, but they do, and somehow I wanted to be. What can I reach in terms of that freedom of imagining and creating and redefining what the world that I want to show in this particular short.
Wait, you bring up one of the strongest points that I noticed about this film, and that was the cinematography. But also the set designs were very 1970s mid-century modern, which I loved because it wasn't just the house, it was also the office, it was the doctor's office. Everything was perfect because it was the consistency that I noticed within the design of the background. Not only was the cinematography absolutely fantastic, I mean, at Oscar level, but the coloring was what really made this film truly stand out because I loved the yellowy, green, the blue tones. So, did you sit down with a particular color palette in mind before you started filming?
Absolutely. If you see the original dossier, it has like this mint green all over the pages, and yeah, it was pretty much discussed previously with Juan Pablo and Nico Scavini, the production designer. Both are monsters in a good way. They are big. I studied with Juan Pablo in film school. He's been growing so much. He just shot La Cocina. He's nominated to an independent film award, and that coloring was pretty much think in the very beginning. I showed them some references. One of them is the bathroom scene with John Goodman inside Llewyn Davis. It's very green, and it's also a reference Roy Anderson. This he's where is he from? He's from Sweden. He's a Sweden director, and it was pretty much there, and they understood it very easily. And we worked with an amazing color grading operator, Miguel Escudero, who's like the right hand of Juan Pablo. And yeah, I mean, I can say that Juan Pablo is an artist, and I love that with this particular film, I think I took him a little bit out of the comfort zone and to do something a little bit more static without very handheld. He's been operating a lot, so it was different for him. And I'm glad that we got to also work with Nico Scavini. It's my first time work with Nicolas Scavini, and it was just we are in conversation already for the new short film.
Well, I love the fact that you did static shots. Now, was this done on real film or digital?
It was digital, and all the zooms were operated by Juan Pablo. It's not digital zooms. There are no digital zoom in this. and every one of them was operated manually by Juan Pablo. Even the last one that we have, when we go back, it's like a zoom out and then we go a zoom in into the wife. That was an improvised one. My idea was to finish it with an open, but then he go for the wife, and I got that final momentum from her that I really love. I have like this joke that maybe this is like my teaser for a TV series about a family, and that the next chapter is the chapter of the mother. And my joke is that for her is like that she start growing some wings, so she at the end fly away from home and from this unexpressive man.
Well, you know, it's funny because the cinematography and the coloring really plays into the fact that when you watch it, you're not thinking that this was done digitally. You really, it has the look of film. And I think it just has to do with the coloring, but visually, this is a stunning short film. And I want to kind of go back into the story because I noticed that when Daniel was walking down the sidewalk with the camera at his back, and then he passed the other gentleman, he turns to look at him. But the other gentleman was walking just a bit faster, but he also seemed to be in pain. So I assumed that that man, that his cries is that um, it really showed that he was not alone by himself in this world. That the man's and even the other man's steps sounded like he was walking on wet pavement as well.
Absolutely. That's the thing, and that's what the pandemic bring to inspiration, like this sickness that go and spread. And yeah, that was like the beginning of the revelation of the film, which is like this is not one man only problem. This is a masculine problem. This is an all man problem. So it was like the beginning of the spreading, like going towards that. Massive sickness, if you want
Well,
to call
yeah.
it.
When Daniel turned around, that's when I looked at it like, oh, he's now realizing he's not the only one going through this. You know, and that's the thing about men, you know, and we are to be the masculine ones. We always think that we're the only ones going through something when there's millions of men going through the exact same thing.
Exactly, exactly. That was the point of this short film, to showcase that we're not made of steel, that we're not made of stone, and that we have to share somehow. And from that point, he starts to try to do something. Next scene is he's in the bathroom trying to figure out if he can take the tears out of his eyes, but not showing emotion again. Men enter to the room. He tries to, I don't know, to do whatever, but showing emotion. And yeah, that was the point, the whole point.
Well, I loved the bathroom scene because it really shows how great of an actor Daniel Haddad really is. And I mean, and see, and I even love the fact that you chose a restroom with that green tone in it because it plays throughout the film, but it really shows again how great an actor he really is. But then there's the scene, and I had to keep playing this scene a few times to really try to grasp its meaning. And when Daniel searches through the house because he hears a man crying, and then he goes outside, he's walking down the street. He's really dealing with some inner turmoil. And even when he wakes up, I notice that in the background, even the mirror is shaped like an eye.
Absolutely. That was on purpose, and that dream nightmare sequence was pretty much designed first with different kinds of cries. I wanted to record different kind of cries. At the end, I ended up using only Daniel's cries, and the revelation of he going out of the home and running because he's been slowed. His feet are so swollen that he, and I really wanted it to be a more aggressive, even gory scene. I would like have to more gory sounds of his feet getting destroyed with the asphalt, you know.
Well,
But
but when he was going down the street, one of the things I kept thinking of is sometimes, when we maybe we're having a bad dream and we're trying to get out of that dream. That's how I was viewing part of that scene, that Daniel was trying to get out of
of
this,
everything,
of
of
everything,
everything.
and try to find happiness. Because when he was sitting on the edge of the bed when he got up, he's like, is this over yet? you know and but it is, that whole sequence of scenes with the crying. I mean, that is some filmmaking right there.
That was our last shot of the on the shooting. We made that long shot of on the house as the last sequence. We were already in a good rhythm. We were having so much fun. Daniel was so focused on the character. We just did a couple of takes and it was there. It was magical. The truth is that I even if I delayed like 12 years in doing fiction, I really got to have the best crew ever. My producer set the path so we creatively could build everything with no hesitation, with no problem, with no preoccupation, and there was everything set. And I mean, the scouting of locations were so good, and yeah, I mean, it was a very fortunate 4 days of shooting. We were so happy.
Well, the ending scene, that is that is something to watch, because when the family sat together for breakfast, the dam broke from inside. And as a man, it showed me that a man can only hold so much in until he has to let it out. And when Daniel did that in that scene, there is so much more to watch, because even the kids, they reacted as most kids would. Many of them usually won't say anything. And for kids, it's usually a very uncomfortable situation if they start seeing their father cry.
Absolutely. And I really wanted them to be the opposite. I mean, physically, I really wanted them to be like a copy of the father. And they were pretty much inspired in these weird twins from Alice in Wonderland. I described them like that to my casting director. And it was very important for me that one of them would have like an immediate anxiety towards the father crying, and the other one has a complete flat expression. That was very important for me because it's like two different ways to cope with sadness, with the sadness of our father. It's pretty much hard to see our parents in a bad moment. Somehow the system has taught us that father in crisis, it's much more uncomfortable to witness, you know.
It's
So
it's not only uncomfortable to witness, but when a father, when children view their father as the head of the household, he is the protector, he is the comforter, he's the one that provides the feeling of security. When the father breaks down like he did in this film, that causes a bit of stress with the kids, because now they feel that part of that security has been weakened, and because they need something emotionally strong to hold on to.
yeah.
And when they see that change, it makes them uncomfortable, and in a way makes them worry and maybe have a bit of a feeling of fear.
And I love that somehow the one that is pretty much anxious, it's a very different response from both, but I wanted to mirror them with the father. I wanted to actually say that somehow it might happen to them, you know, if we don't cope and if we don't work with our emotions. I mean, it's something that it's pretty much like like a heritage, you know. It comes, it's come within our genes. So yeah, it's an interesting scene. I like that scene. I have to say that it was important for me to. I'm going to another scene because it's the only character that somehow touches him and shows somehow a little empathy is the mechanic, and that is my favorite scene in the film because it has no resolution. It has like a magic weird ending with this thing with the eyelash that is very Mexican thing to do. I think everywhere in the world we have a thing to do with the eyelash in the face, but in Mexico that's the thing we do. We make for a wish, and we decide how many blows to happen. And that scene was and it's weird. It became my favorite scene in the film, even though when I was writing it, I didn't knew how to finish it. I knew I wanted the mechanic to be the one who saw him and to ask him like, "What is wrong with you? Are you okay? You can tell me." But I didn't knew how to finish that scene. And one day I was like, "Okay, let's play with this trick with the eyelash. So maybe this wish of releasing comes true, and it's just like a mixture of things that I
Well,
wanted to
that's
be kind of
yeah,
ambiguous.
because the mechanic scene, that is really the secret scene in this whole film. Because you're in a garage. How masculine can you be when it's a garage and a mechanic? But what is, and you bring up the whole eyelash thing because it was in a way, here is this other gentleman, as masculine as you could be being a mechanic,
Yeah.
reaches out to Daniel, and it's just an eyelash. Mostly that's usually a women thing, a woman thing. A woman goes, "Oh, you got an eyelash, let me get that." A man you will not, you I know in America, I don't know one man that would ever do that. And so there's a lot of, it's really a metaphor in this whole scene.
Absolutely.
And that is the secret scene. Because then I mean, due to the fact that, and I call it that because they're in the office of the garage. It's not bright. It's slightly dim with lighting, as an office garage would be in most cases in this setting. And so there is this little secret there, and it just works so well based on the topic of this film. I mean, it's just brilliant filmmaking all the way around.
Thank you very much, Ward, on that. I really love that scene. Since the very beginning, I knew that it needed to be special. I get to work with this amazing performer, Isi Rojano. He was a little bit nervous in the very beginning, but he was great. Since the casting I made, I mean, we check on like 10 actors for the mechanic. I don't like to do a lot of casting. I like to offer, see faces, and see you are the character. But in this case, I needed to do a casting process. He came to the casting offices dressed as a mechanic already, with grease on his face and everything, and it was like, man, you're just amazing, this is just great. And he did it amazingly, and he has this mixture of tenderness and but also like it could be like a little bit aggressive. And but yet, as you mentioned, for me it's the encounter of a big man, a big office man with a mechanic in this rough scenario. And he's the only one who touches, and he touched his face. And you can see how the other tenses, but at the same time, he lets go a little bit. He lets go and allows him to be touched by another man and to make a wish. The other man allows him to make a wish, and you don't know if that's why the next morning he starts crying.
That's it. That's it. And at the dinner table, the wife was caught by surprise because when I was looking at her, she was caught by surprise because he was hiding his sadness and grief from her, not to worry her. And then the look on his face, and this is and in this film, this is the first time in the film in which his look, Daniel's look, softens. And when he gets up from the table, he kisses his wife and leaves with this very slight smile on his face. I mean, I had to rewind it a few times just to pause it on the right frame, just to catch it, because the smile on his face is so slight, you have to catch it pretty quickly. And I thought, wow,
Yeah.
that was just brilliant acting, because it also showed that the wife realizes she hasn't been paying enough attention to her husband, because in the previous scenes, she's wearing her eye mask in bed, symbolizing she hasn't been paying attention at all.
But at the same time, I didn't want to create a wife that is a needy wife. I don't want to portray a woman like that. If you pay attention, she asked him like, I can go for the car. I mean, she does stuff. She has her own life. She has her own space, her own way to do things. And I really wanted to take care that she's not yeah, that she somehow has some kind of independence, but also that she cope with her emotions like all women do, or like most women do, with a more responsible way and a more
Yeah, she
empathetic
wasn't needy
way.
at all. Yeah, she
No.
wasn't needy at all. I mean, she comes across as, a confident wife. Um, she supports her husband, but he's been hiding this internal stress and sadness that he wasn't really sharing with her, but she wasn't really noticing that he was going through something, even though she kind of knew that he had gone to the doctor.
Mhm.
But again, you're right. She wasn't needy at all. She played that part perfectly, because you're telling. I mean, that's the cool thing about short films. You have the film, you have this outward visual part, but you have to pay attention because there's an internal film going on. And you're one of the few that I've seen this past year who has pulled that off with brilliance.
Thank you very much on that. As I told you, I realized that comedy performers are the best in the world. Demetrio Bonilla, one of the sons, the red hair one, the one who acts more, he's a great comedian. Yuriria del Valle, the wife, is a great comedian. Daniel, we don't have to mention it. Even Fernando, who has been doing more drama, he's a great comedian. And the precise moment in which I realized I was lucky, I was the luckiest director in that set, is when Daniel recalibrates from the crying to the seriousness and starts eating pancakes again. Is just something that when I saw it in the editing room, I was like, wow, this is a monster. This actor is just perfection. That moment in which he just do something with his body and his face, and he just recalibrates to the man, not the crying man, not to the emotional man, but to the man we've seen the whole film. Oof, that took me out. And the thing is that I would like to show you the whole scene. Just the take of Daniel that goes from the close up to the wide is just perfect. He just don't, I mean, I edited because I needed to see the family, but maybe I would have left him like the whole zoom out as the sequence, but I needed to see faces, to see reactions. But that was just like a moment of, I mean, in terms of acting, I would say the bathroom and that 5 seconds of recalibration are like, wow, you really were born to do this role.
Oh, yeah, yeah, because the moment he stood up, that's when you see this emotional change. And I loved it. But you did something that I don't think I've seen in years. And most people will not even think twice about it, but I just thought it was a really cool factor, because you brought the whole family to the table, and it was breakfast. I don't remember seeing a family sitting down together at breakfast, actually eating a real breakfast, probably since maybe some of the sitcoms that were from the 50s or even the 60s.
I I pretty much thought about. It's not similar, but I wanted. I really watch American Beauty. I love the scenes on the table, and somehow I really wanted. It was a very difficult sequence to shoot. Let me tell you, because I have all this different coverage, and amazingly all the actors performed equally every take we did. I mean, they performed it equally, and it was very difficult. It was one of the sequences that I needed to rehearse, and uh, and thank you for the compliment word. I mean, it was pretty much like a pain, that scene, that I have to say. And it's very important for me that the wife by the end says this. Is this it? Is that it? Is that enough? I mean, like, that was very important for me, for her to say.
Yeah. Yeah, because, and I replayed that ending scene of the wife over and over again because I'm just like, oh, it just says so much to end the film like that. And, but I've got to ask you about the music score
Mm.
because it was dramatic, it was poignant. I know Antonio Castillo was the composer. Tell me about the music score.
Well, Antonio is my cousin, and by the time we were roommates, so we have plenty of time to prepare, even years previous. Like, I wrote it, I think, in 21. So he was the very first one to read the script, he and Juan Pablo, and I started sending him music. I love to do playlists on Spotify for my stories. I have a mood for all of them. I love music. My dad is a musician. I tried to be a musician somehow, but I couldn't. And I don't know. I mean, I just find the greatest collaborator in my cousin. He's just amazing, sensitive, and what he did was to he told me, like, because of course the playlist was like 100 or more songs, so somehow he told me, like, choose 10 songs that are like the top 10, and from there we'll see. And I wasn't like, I mean, I like mentioned, like, Alexandre Desplat on Birth by Jonathan Glazer has this pulse. It has a song with this pulse, so the very theme of the film comes from there. We got references from Johnny Greenwood, from not from Paul Thomas Anderson films, but he made a previous documentary before doing all the great scores that we know, and a documentary called Body Song. And this film, Body Song, has this rhythm, tense percussion song, which is the song from the Doctor. So I love references. I love references. I don't like when storytellers say that, no, 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 I imagine everything. No, I am my references. I am the directors that I love. I am the musicians that I love. I am the comics that I love. So therefore, I love to send references to my team. But I love that Tonio made possible to create a music tone for our own. I mean, you can feel the references, but I think the score of La Cascada is pretty much a unique sound, something that Tonio found
Well,
really,
yeah.
really, really on the way.
What caught my ear was in the dream scene and the scene at the table. There's a clock light ticking and a beat over the top of was a very tribal drum beat, and I loved it.
Yeah, there is something with the pulse that I really love. There is something with a strong beat that I think it helps. I think each film has rhythm. You have to film. You have. I mean, I like to think films in terms of rhythm. If there's an internal rhythm on the film, sometimes it's like a song. A film is like a big song. A short film is like a shorter song, but it has rhythm. You have to go. There are lows and highs and lows, so somehow I try to see it like that, to edit it with a lot of rhythm. If you pay attention to the cuts, every cut is on rhythm. Even the walk of Daniel's in the sidewalk on the street, we placed him an AirPod so he could hear the song, and he go to each step went to the beat of the song. So there's a lot of musicality on the way that I work. Not previously, Las Lagrimas was an experiment on modesty, and I was a film student by the time, pretentious, and I was like, no, I don't need music. It's a it's like a false resource. If you're not strong enough, you will play music. And no, in this one I wanted to do the complete opposite. Las Lágrimas was an experiment on improvisation. I didn't write a proper script, so I left the actors improvise everything. And this, I wanted to have clinic control on everything. I really love Bong Joon-ho. I really love David Fincher, which I think both are like the most clinic filmmakers working today, or some of them. And I wanted to try that, and I really loved it. I really love that way of working, of controlling everything, not in a bad way, but I love the kind of control that you can have on a story.
Well, you're the director. You're supposed to have control of everything.
But sometimes, I mean, I love Gus Van Sant, and he once said that missing control is a way to make amazing findings, like to find amazing things. And I trust that, because if you see his most their films that I love, like Jerry, Elephant, Last Days, my favorite films of him, and Paranoid Park, you can see the freedom there. You can see that there wasn't a director saying, no, it's like this, or like a choreography, like the precision that you can see on every Fincher film, for example.
Well, what's next for you? What's next for you in 2025?
I am I am finishing the script of a. I've been working years on a horror film that I'd like to do. I am also writing a more cheap independent feature film to see which comes first. But the truth word is that I love short film right now. I think short film is having its momentum. I think short film will grow as a cinematic expression. So I am working in something new. I will definitely do a next short film this year. I am pretty much interested in working with or talking about intelligent AI. I am pretty much interested in AI, how it will affect works all around the world, how it will affect everything. We're witnessing right now. So I'm pretty much I'm working towards that. Um, I would like to tell you more, but there's one that is like a very very low, I don't know, private idea that I'd like to show it when it's on. One is to be shoot on LA, and the other is one to be shoot on the countryside in Mexico.
Well, I will say this. I was very disappointed that the Cascade did not get Oscar shortlisted. And I have to say that because this film stood out. And just last year alone, I saw over 150 films. And when I saw all the films that were Oscar qualified, I kept looking at this one going, yeah, this one's going to make it. But it's so weird. And you know this, the Oscars are so unpredictable. And I've seen, and I know some films that were shortlisted, and I'm scratching my head thinking, why and how? And but I loved the Cascade because it was cinematic. There's a film within a film. The characters, the acting, the cinematography, the coloring, the music score, everything just worked together. And those that didn't get it were the ones that weren't paying attention.
I mean, thank you, Ward, on that. I mean, it was a little disappointed to know it too, but it was great to be on the run and to be longlisted. We got to we got to win Huesca in Spain for our qualifying prize, and it was great. We did it into a couple of shortlist predictions, and at certain point we thought we would made it, but it's unpredictable. It's like it is, but what I love is that the resonance of the short films comes from everyone's work. It's not a thing of Daniel. It's not only a thing of me. It's not only that it has a good cinematography. It has an ensemble of creativity that I think we get it right, and that's why I found my crew. I found my crew because I there were people I've worked with before, but there were new people. My producer was a new producer, my production designer, my sound designer. So it was like this is what it is for, to create a creative family. And yeah, I mean, we'll try to get there anytime soon.
Oh, you will. And ladies and gentlemen, the Cascade. A man discovers he has been crying for 2 months without even realizing it. His face has an impenetrable, serious gesture. Strangely, his tears have decided to work in an inverse manner, transforming his interiors into a waterfall. And the water has started to pool at his feet. The man will have to find a way to stop a cry that he can't even feel. Now, everything about this film is stunning. The storyline engages the audience. The cinematography, along with the acting of Daniel Haddad, is a synergistic dance of storytelling with minimal dialogue. The coloring and the music score play a very huge role in this film, and overall, it is a cinematic work of art that you must see and feel to believe. So, Pablo, I want to thank you so much for sharing your incredible film with me today.
Thank you, Ward, for this amazing conversation. I loved it.
Well, you're very welcome. And hey, ladies and gentlemen, whenever you get the chance to see the Cascade, be sure that you watch this film. As I said before, there's a film within a film, and that's what makes brilliant filmmaking. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for watching. And as for me, you'll either see me at the movies or from the red carpet.